We got a mixed bag of good, bad, and in this week's low budget binge. They can't all be great weeks, but this one's got a couple of high points. Stick around and find out what they are. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. The Last Ghost Hunters, aka Greek Fire Demon Spirit, is new on-demand and digital download from Wild Eye Releasing. It's directed and written by Dan T. Hall. A threesome of ghost hunters ventures to a small town to an abandoned house where owners disappeared long ago. The ghost hunters, led by Mitch, played by Ransom Pugh, accompanied by cameraman Kelly, played by Kelly McKinney, and a medium named Faith, played by Molly Hall, uncover that the location houses a dark entity endangering whoever enters, including the ghost hunters themselves. The Last Ghost Hunters has a bare-bones budget, but it knows how to stretch its dollar and provide some ghoulish images despite itself. While the usual trappings of low-budget cinema apply with amateur acting, lo-fi effects, and not the best of written storylines, still, filmmaker Dan T. Hall is able to provide some decent scenes flashing back to some of the home's more diabolical memories with quick cuts through disturbing and shocking imagery. These scenes are done with either haunt house level practical effects or rough CG, but both are only flashed onto the screen, so the image doesn't linger long enough to be picked apart. There are some really effective little moments that set a very dark mood as the ghost hunters prepare for their investigation. It works in that it causes a sense of unease, like the ghost hunters really are venturing into some place dangerous and dark. That said, this is a rough pill to swallow. Instead of trying to play things up as a real ghost investigation, everything is hyped up to 11. But honestly, what's a real ghost investigation? The backpatting schmaltz of sci-fi's ghost hunters, or the dude bro stoogery of ghost adventures? I guess those two are top of the heap, but they're far from feeling legit. In The Last Ghost Hunters, all of the usual tricks like EVPs and flashlight signaling are used. Since it's a ghost of a little girl they're attempting to communicate with, they use a toy ball to try to contact her. While these tools of the ghost hunting trade parallel the methods seen on TV, they seem to work too well and almost immediately. What is really distracting and annoying is the introduction of mystic powers to the mix. I understand that some ghost hunters incorporate people who believe they are mediums in order to read feelings, sensations, and auras. But Ghost Hunter Faith, Molly Hall, goes full-on Doctor Strange here, utilizing all sorts of powers to hold back demons, put up barriers, and concoct potions to do battle with the paranormal. The original title, The Last Ghost Hunters, was Greek Fire Demon Spirit. It refers to the Moab of herb warfare against evil spirits, but unfortunately it sounds like a cooking show, so I understand why they changed the name. While the buck is stretched effectively, and the filmmaker was able to create a spooky mood, The Last Ghost Hunters gets wonky with the actual story, and takes quite a few goofy liberties with ghost hunting in general. I'm glad they went in a cinematic route rather than the found footage format, but this one is just for ghost hunting completists out there, if such viewers still exist. Lair is new on-demand and digital download from 1091 Pictures. It's directed by Adam Ethan Crow, and written by Adam Ethan Crow and Stuart Wright. Lair opens on a man named Dollarhide, played by Oded Fair, who gets top billing but only shows up for the first few minutes, and even then is in total shadow. Dollarhide is pining in jail, beating himself up for underestimating the power of the supernatural, which resulted in the death of his clients. Dollarhide was a part of a group of ghost hunters who scammed people in need out of money. Stephen, played by Corey Johnson, is another member of this group, still scamming away at his clients. While Stephen gets his hands on an artifact that is said to be actually cursed, he scrambles to find a way to make money from this find. Enter the Coulson family, a family of 4 who move into the apartment Stephen owns. In hopes to capture proof of the supernatural, Stephen plants the artifact along with multiple cameras in the apartment. Turns out Stephen's plan works too well, and the family is in grave danger. I've seen praise for Lair online, and honestly, I wonder if we watch the same movie. I don't like to rip too hard into a film, especially one with such a low budget, but man, I have to tell you, Lair is a steaming hot mess. Where to begin? The biggest problem is that it seems that there is just too much filmmaker Adam Ethan Crow attempted to tackle in this hour-and-a-half length movie. There's the scam artist ghost hunters angle, there's the very real supernatural angle, there's the pervy voyeur angle, there's the lesbian couple attempting to raise 2 children subplot, there's a teenager trying to break away from the family, and a child who is having conversations with a playmate that isn't really there. There's police who seem to care too much about the family, and there's a secret conspiracy group collecting paranormal artifacts. It's just too much, and in the end, there just isn't enough time to delve into any of these plots sufficiently in an hour and a half. So the story just kind of grazes over all of them in a very unsatisfying way. I wish the filmmakers would have latched on to 1 or 2 or 3 at the most of these ideas and simply wrote out the rest. It would have made for a much clearer narrative that doesn't bob around and require characters to turn on a dime simply because the plot needs them to. The narrative, never really fixing on one main character, is extremely disorienting. Who's the protagonist here? Are we to follow Stephen, the lesbian couple, the teenager, the kid? The script never settles on any one of them for too long. Out of the cast, Anya Newell's angsty teen, Joey, stands out as the most interesting and watchable character. Had Lair focused mainly on her story, I think it would have been a much more digestible one. One of the biggest problems is the character of Stephen, played by Corey Johnson, who gets the most screen time, but is by far the most loathsome character of the bunch. He's a scam artist. He knowingly plants a cursed artifact in the family's apartment, endangering them. He luridly watches the lesbians have sex, and might even be spying on the teenage daughter. I think the story is supposed to follow some kind of redemption arc for the character, but Stephen does so many horrendous things that there's no way I cared for him, even if he does have a change of heart in the latter portion. Corey Johnson has been a recognizable character actor for ages, and I don't know if this is his first lead role or not, but man, does he make it impossible to root for him. The dialogue is absolutely atrocious, especially in the first third of the film. This is when Stephen interacts with everyone in the same sarcastic, unfunny way and firmly establishes him as a completely unlikable character. I get it that they wanted to make Stephen a character with a one-liner for everything, but Robert Downey Jr., he is not, and the script calls for all of the characters to be snide and snarky to each other, in the exact same crass and unlikable way. So you have everyone cracking wise in the exact same voice, and all of it is bad clever speak dialogue that would make Joss Whedon and Kevin Williamson turn several shades of red in shame. My list of complaints can go on, and I guess when you're getting to Corey Johnson's weird double comb-over, messed up and overly moosed hair, it's time to move on to more positive areas. I did think that some of the scenes where Stephen witnesses something paranormal going on at the home through his security cams were very effective, if not repetitive. There are scenes that work in Lair, and most of them are where Stephen plays the audience reaction to whatever crazy stuff is going on as the creature takes more of a physical form. The way the creature attacks is especially cool too, as it strikes fast and deadly, and it appears to be sleek and black, yet prickly like a panther with porcupine quills. Had this just been a monster in the house flick, I think it would have worked. But these scenes where Stephen watches the events unfold and increase in threat only made me more frustrated. There's nothing but greed stopping Stephen from going over there and helping the family in need, though it appears he's having some kind of inner struggle whether or not to interfere. The problem is that he is right next door, and there's no physical barrier keeping Stephen from coming over even if he wanted to help. Also, the first sign of there being some kind of paranormal activity is proof. He doesn't need it to go any further, but he still lets it go. Sure, a crisis of faith works, but Stephen's turn happens way too late in the game, and because he could have just stepped out of his office to intervene, it makes his character morally decrepit. By the time for the admittedly bombastic and gnarly ending where the monster is wreaking havoc on the family, I just didn't care. In the final reel, the family begins acting with amped up feelings towards each other because of the artifact, a detail that really isn't introduced until the very end. The story leading up to it felt unfocused and incomprehensible. The conspiracy angle ending gave me the same what the fuck reaction that I got from the ending of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. It just feels tacked on and not completely well thought out. Lair is an overwritten and unnecessarily complex film. It's oversaturated with clever speak, making it feel completely ingenuine and unfunny. Its plot is aimless, making the whole thing feel overlong. A cool monster can sometimes make a movie great, but when the rest of the film is incomprehensible, it doesn't work. I wasted more time than I should have discussing and dissecting this flawed film. I think I did so because the ingredients in Lair had so much potential. It just needed someone objective on board, saying enough is enough. Black Holler is new on demand and digital download from Wild Eye Releasing. It's directed by Jason Berg and written by Jason Berg, Rachel Ward Heggen, and Heidi Ervin. It's 1985, and the newest student in town, Laquita, played by Tamiko Robinson-Steele, is the talk of the town. She shows up just in time for the class field trip in the woods to look for an ancient stone known to have mystical properties. When members of her class begin disappearing, Laquita uses her special set of skills to take on those who look to exploit the mystical stone in dark ways. Black Holler is a horror comedy made in 2017. It's pretty evident the film was made a few years ago, mainly because of the racy humor that occurs throughout. Numerous times it's pointed out that Laquita is the sole black person in the group. There are off-color jokes all over the place that might lead to cancellation if said these days. But because of this no-fucks-given attitude towards humor, I have to say it was kind of refreshing to see someone cracking jokes without hesitation. Sure, not all of the jokes land, and some are downright stinkers, but there were enough jokes that worked to keep me entertained. For example, there's a guy named Brett whose catchphrase is, "I won't change for anyone." But in every other scene, he's played by a different character. The lowbrow fart and sex humor worked on me too. This isn't any kind of sophisticated comedy, but if you find lowest common denominator humor amusing, it's there aplenty. I can't say the horror is as effective as the humor, though. Black Holler seems to be riffing off of The Evil Dead as the forest becomes possessed, alive, and full of vengeance. People are skewered with tree branches and hung by vines. There are some very rudimentary gore with plastic body parts tossed about, and even some shoddy CG tossed in. The lo-fi aspects of these effects are supposed to add to the comedy, but it didn't really work for me. I can't fully recommend a movie for a few solid giggles and the balls to do racial jokes in this modern age, but the cast does seem to be somewhat talented and able to play it straight in the face of ridiculousness. It is quite funny to see these late 20-somethings and older playing high schoolers. It's an old-school horror cliche, but it really stands out here and is played for laughs often. Black Holler is an extremely lo-fi film, and I hope it's a stepping stone to bigger and better things for all who made it. It made me chuckle a few times, and some of the line deliveries are downright hilarious. But this horror comedy lacks the attention to horror for me to recommend. Ankle Biters, aka CHERRYPICKER, is new on DVD, on demand, and digital download from Dark Star Pictures. It's directed by Bennet de Brabandere and written by Bennet de Brabandere and Zion Forrest Lee. Zion Forrest Lee plays retired hockey player Sean Chase. He's grown tired of the constant life-threatening fights and the wear and tear he gets on the ice and decides to settle down with his beautiful girlfriend, Laura, who happens to be the mother of 4 young girls. When Sean decides to take the relationship to the next level, he asks Laura to live with him, which means the girls are a package deal. When the whole crew move to Sean's house, the girls see a video of Sean and Laura having sex. Believing that Sean is hurting their mom, the girls hatch a plan to get rid of Sean and save their mother. While this might sound like the premise of a daffy Disney comedy, Ankle Biters is actually a pitch-black comedy with serious consequences. Sure, much of the film is played for laughs, but these are devious little girls who are best watched closely. Ankle Biters manages to maintain a level of levity, as well as dealing with some serious issues about sudden parenthood from both the new parent and the children's perspectives. The logic behind what the children believe is a solid understanding of what is going on in the video. Sure, Sean and Laura are just trying to get their kink on, but they don't know that. Their reactions are extreme, but again, understandable that they would be protective of their mother in this way. I love the way this film really has a no fucks given attitude and presents the story, warts and blood and all. In all honesty, I'm surprised something like this hasn't really happened in this wonky world we live in. There really are only 3 scenes of violence, and only one of them is truly gory. Most of the time, we are given a glimpse of the girls attempting to process the situation and plotting to do something about it. I think it works, but I do feel there is an unaddressed story there explaining why the girls mistrust Sean so much and how quickly they resort to murderous reactions. Maybe their former dad used to beat their mom or something like that. That would make these extreme reactions a little bit more understandable. But when they attack, holy crap are these girls formidable. Yes, most of the film is played to outrageous lengths, but there's a serious undertone to the entire thing because Sean and Laurie honestly do seem to love each other and are so much in pre-wedded bliss that they simply don't notice this malice towards Sean growing until it's too late. The numerous scenes where adults look at the girls and think they're angels when they really are plotting a bloody death never got old. Seeing these little girls turn into knife-wielding monsters is wrong, but for me it's the right kind of wrong. Both Zion Forrest Lee and Marianthe Evans are solid in the leads. They're likable, charming, and believably passionate about one another. The little girls, played by Lily Gale Reed, Marianne Castro, Rosalie Reed, and Dahlia Reed, all come off as distinct characters and for the most part are directed in such a way that their limited screen time works. If you like your comedies deeply darkened to perfection, Ankle Biters fits the bill nicely. And finally, there is The Land of Blue Lakes. It's new on Vimeo on demand. It's directed and written by Arturs Latkovskis. A group of 5 Russian kayakers paddled their way through a series of lakes and inlets on a hiking trip. As their trip progresses, it's revealed these islands once were the sites of pagan sacrifices before the area was overtaken by Christianity. As the kayakers proceed on their journey, they find odd markings, strange baby dolls nailed to the trees, and more indications that something dark still inhabits this area. What makes The Land of Blue Lakes work is that it feels 100% legit. It's a found footage film, but a few words placed at the beginning of the film makes everything you're about to see feel like it's absolutely authentic. And really, that should be the goal of all found footage films. This means there's no additional music added, and no scenes that aren't filmed by the present people. The opening scrawl states that 5 kayakers went out on the lakes and never returned. Then it says that this footage was found uploaded to the dark web. So the editing of multiple cameras issue is overcome by putting on the facade that some weird dark webber snagged the footage and put it all together for our sick enjoyment. This means that The Land of Blue Lakes feels about as real as it can be, which is important to me as a viewer and should be important to more makers of found footage films. The Land of Blue Lakes also provides some amazing views of the gorgeous landscape of the Latvian lakes. It also guarantees that I'm not interested, nor will I ever be interested in kayaking anytime soon. Not only does it seem like an insane amount of work, but this group paddled through shallow reeds and must overcome branches blocking their routes. Too much work for me, thank you very much. One of the cooler views that is occasionally used is the panoramic view, reminiscent of many a Beastie Boys videos, which gives a 360-degree view of the kayakers and the lake around them. It just makes for a cool and different way of following this group as they take their perilous journey. One of the sad issues of many a found footage film is that there's an awful lot of walking through the woods, screaming for lost members of the group, and talking, and more walking, and talking, and more walking, and very little happening until the very, very end of the film. It's an unfortunate detail found in some of the biggest films of this type, like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity. Sadly, The Land of Blue Lakes is guilty of this too, and I feel it's going to be the one thing that kills it for viewers. There's a lot of attention given to the lakes and the paddling. I mean, a lot. I'm not saying there aren't some suspicious things going on throughout the film. Savvy viewers will see people stalking the group hidden in the background. There's a creepy moment where someone steals the camera and films the group while they're sleeping, and the backstory of the pagan rituals is peppered in throughout the story. But the real action doesn't really get going until the hour mark. And with this being an hour and 12-minute film, it's going to be a little too little and a little too late for a lot of viewers. I was gripped by the final few minutes of The Land of the Blue Lakes. The action is brutal and frightening. What impressed me most is that this feels authentic, with no production bells and whistles added. It may take its sweet time to get to the good stuff, but the found footage genre may not be fading as much as it is in popularity if they made more of them look as credible as this film looks. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both GRAVETRANCERS and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to live inside.